Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our March Age Well series event, Unlock the Power of Nutrition for Healthy Aging. We have a wonderful speaker joining us for the second time today, and we're excited to learn more about nutrition. Before we get started, I'll just give a brief overview of WEHA. My name is Erin Eggert, and I am the Deputy Director here. WEHA is an organization whose mission is to improve the health and well-being of all people as we age. We encourage you to learn more about our programs and initiatives on our website and to sign up for our Age Well newsletter if you're not already. This event is part of our Age Well series, a series of webinars designed to bring you information and resources to help you age well. You can find all Age Well series recordings on our website. Just a few housekeeping pieces before we get started. All participants will be muted and have their cameras off during this presentation. This webinar will be recorded and an email will be sent out to all registered participants after the presentation. Please use the chat box to submit any questions. We will be holding all questions for after the presentation today.
It's not launching.
Today, I'm excited to bring back Pam Van Kampen, who is a registered dietitian from the Greater Wisconsin Agency on Aging Resources, or GWAR. Pam brings forth a wealth of knowledge on nutrition, particularly with aging adults. Pam, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Erin. I'm delighted to join you all today again. Thank you for letting me be here. I'm going to share my screen, and while I do that, I'll just make sure I got the right one here. Oh, sugar. I guess it's this one. Share. And then, Erin, just tell me, are you seeing the regular slides?
No, I see your presenter mode right now.
Okay, 1 second. Let me get rid of that little guy. Let me stop sharing and let me do one more thing. Let's try this. Okay, now
Perfect.
I just got to get to my view. Mhm. Okay, but now I'm not seeing my presenter view anymore. I don't know why. Let me just try this one more time. Okay, now do you still see the regular slides? Oh, perfect. Okay, so now that we got that done, I think Erin is going to launch a poll question. And the poll question is, do you feel you get enough nutrients from your diet to stay healthy? And so if you could take a second to answer that question, that will help set the stage. And we'll be peppering in some poll questions throughout the presentation today just to kind of keep it interactive. And so I can learn actually too, kind of what the audience is experiencing. So thank you for answering that poll question, and we'll see the results in a minute. But again, I'm just delighted to be here today. Oh, good. The response is you tried to, but I'm not sure, about 60% of you. So that's great. So hopefully the presentation today will help you be more sure or more confident that the foods that you're eating are nourishing your body. But sometimes there are situations when we might need a supplement, and we're going to talk about that a little bit too. All right. So we have a lot to cover. So as Erin said, just feel free to type any questions in chat and we will get to them. Our agenda today is we're going to do an overview of some vitamins and minerals. We certainly couldn't do them all. I have a reference book here for all the vitamins, minerals, and dietary supplements. So as you can see, we couldn't cover them all today. But I will be sharing a resource that you can visit, that you can look up information on your own as well. We're going to talk about interactions of some vitamins and minerals with some common medications. We're going to take a closer look at the vitamins and minerals and nutrients of concern for older adults, and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. All right. I have another poll question. Do you currently take a basic multivitamin, or I guess any multivitamin, and I can speak to the rest of it in a second. All right. So, did you know that our bodies can't make most of the vitamins that we need? And it certainly can't make any of the minerals that we need. So, we have to get them from food or water. So, your body, that's why eating a variety. Oh, that's okay, about half and half. So again, I'll speak to this thing with multivitamins in a second, but good to know that about half of you take and half of you don't. All right. So our bodies, one second. Vitamins help our body work properly. So when you look at a food, don't just look at the deliciousness of the food. Look at a food and think, hey, what vitamins and minerals are in that food? And how is that going to help me feel better and my body to function better? And it's not just one vitamin per se, it's all the vitamins and phytochemicals in that food that make it work in our body. But the vitamins help our body work properly. They turn food into energy. They help keep your immune system strong, and they help heal our body when it's sick, plus a whole bunch of other things. So, for example, as you all probably know, vitamin C helps you heal. So when you have a cold, people say, drink your orange juice or eat oranges. Or vitamin D helps keep our bones strong. And minerals are things that are like help build strong bones. They keep your heart beating. They make sure your muscles and nerves are working properly. So they might seem like, I'm sure you never think about vitamins and minerals, but what they do on our body is incredibly important. For example, iron. Iron helps carry the oxygen in your blood. Which is critical for our functioning, but we just take that all for granted because our bodies just work so wonderfully on their own, usually, if we're getting enough of the vitamins and minerals we need. So, the word vitamin comes from the Latin word vita, which means life, and then it was combined with the word amine, which means it contained nitrogen. But I can't remember when the E got dropped from the word vitamin because they found that not all vitamins contain nitrogen. So that's just a little fun fact. It was named by Mr. Funk in 1912. All right, so here's kind of a picture of like a delicious lemon and then the vitamin C capsule. So there's two types of vitamins. There's water-soluble vitamins and fat-soluble vitamins. Water-soluble means they're not stored in our body. And so it's important for us to eat those vitamins every day, either through our diet or if we're not sure if we're eating them every day, through a basic multivitamin. Now, I want to speak to that just for a second. The multivitamins that are out there, if you're going to take one, look for the one that just says like men or women 50 plus. And the reason for that is because they put a few of the higher things that we need more of into that brand of vitamin that's for 50 plus. But you do not have to buy an expensive brand of vitamin. And I would encourage you to not buy one that has mega doses of things in it. So if you read the label, it should be around 100% of the dietary reference intake for the vitamin. And that way, it just helps ensure adequacy if you're taking a multivitamin, especially if you're not sure you're eating enough from your diet. But if you're buying those mega dose vitamins and spending a lot of money for them, to this point, most of our vitamins are water soluble. So they're just going to be flushed down the toilet if your body doesn't need them. So why literally flush your money down the toilet if you don't need it? All right, so it's an important point that I wanted to make. And then the fat soluble vitamins, they're easy to remember because they're A, D, E, and K. And that means they're absorbed into the fats in our body and our liver, and our body stores them there for about 6 months. And then for some reason, if we get sick or our bodies are stressed and need a little bit more of that at either any of those 4 vitamins, then our body can pull it out of reserves and be like, oh, I need some more D, I need some more A. But if you're not eating enough foods that have vitamin A, D, E, and K, then you could become deficient. But it's harder to become deficient in those vitamins unless you're taking certain medicines that might interfere with the absorption. And I'm going to touch on those in a couple slides. Okay. Also, just a note, if you start taking or you're taking vitamins and you notice that your urines are like a dark color, that's probably a sign that you're taking too many and your body's just flushing them out because it's like, I don't need all these. So you might want to cut back and maybe take a multivitamin every other day or every 2 or 3 days, or only take it when you're not feeling well and not eating an adequate amount. This is important because a lot of times we don't tell our doctor all the over-the-counter vitamins, minerals, and supplements that we take. And so please tell them, even if they don't ask, because vitamins, minerals, and supplements can act in our body like medicines. There's a big movement called Food is Medicine. And I'm not going to speak to that today, but if you want to look it up, is basically saying that food can affect our bodies and act like a medication. It's powerful. And so please tell your doctor any and all of the vitamins, minerals, and supplements that you're taking because they could interact with your medications. There's a nice website that's really easy to navigate, and then you can enter in everything that you're taking, and it will print out if there's some interaction that you should be aware of that you could talk to your doctor. It's an easy thing to remember. It's just drugs.com. Drugs.com if you want to look up some information about your medications and see if they're interacting with any vitamins, minerals, or supplements that you might be taking. All right, the vitamins and minerals that we're going to talk about today are calcium, vitamin D, potassium, magnesium, vitamin B12, iron, vitamin A, and vitamin C. And so Erin is going to launch a poll real quick. What percentage of older adults are estimated to have a low vitamin D level? I know it seems like a lot to cover, and so that's why we're going to touch on this. And again, I'll show you a website where you can take a deeper dive and get some really nice research, science-based fact sheets from our federal government called the National Institute of Health. It's an excellent resource, and I'll share that in a minute. Hey, that's right. 50%. 50% is what is the average estimate of older adults that are estimated to be have lower levels of vitamin D. And some studies show it anywhere from 20 to 100%, depending on where you live. For example, if you're an older adult living in a nursing home or a long-term care facility, and you don't get outside in the sun, and you tend to eat the same food and aren't getting a supplement or taking multiple medications, you could be at higher risk for not getting enough vitamin D. And I'll take a deeper dive into vitamin D in a few slides. First, I want to share with you the resource, if I can get my slide to advance. This is the National Institute of Health. This is a URL, but if you just type in National Institute of Health or even Office of Dietary Supplements, you'll get this website to pop up, and you'll see down here that you can browse by name. So if you're taking vitamin A, or if you're taking any supplement, really any herbal supplement, and you click on it, it will give you a beautiful, detailed research and science-based fact sheet. It'll tell you how much you should take, what the upper limits are, what the dangers are of taking too much, what it might interact with, and the food sources. So this is a great free resource for you. So Office of Dietary Supplements. Right. And another nice website from the USDA, which is also an amazing tool, is called the Food Data Central. So I'll be going through in some slides and talking about, well, this food is high in vitamin A, or this food is high in vitamin D. But if you want to kind of look up individual foods on your own and say, well, heck, I eat a lot of artichokes. What are those high in? And do they have a lot of vitamin A or C or D or E? It will give you the whole nutrient analysis, and there's a huge library of foods in this URL. So it's just fdc.nal www.usda.gov/food-search, and or try to type in Food Data Central. And then as you scroll down, you'll just see all of these foods listed, or I think you can also search by their food's name. So that's a great resource for you as well. So let's just talk briefly about why medications work differently in older adults. As our body ages, as we all know, our body changes as we age, and that can affect how the medications are absorbed into our bodies. So I always, whenever my doc wants to start me on a new medicine, I'm always hesitant, but I always say, well, let's make sure we start low and we go slow. Because, like I said, there's different ways that our bodies utilize the medication. It takes longer for our body to break down those meds, and our diet and our activity level can influence how those medications work in our body. And this is a point I wanted to stress today, because after the presentation today, if you're motivated to maybe add some different foods to your diet or make small or big changes to your diet or your activity level, again, make sure you communicate that to your doctor, because that might be influencing the medications you're taking. And I'll show you some specific examples in the next 3 slides, actually. So let's start with digoxin. So digoxin helps your heart beat regularly. If you're taking that medication, it could interact with vitamin D. And if you have too much vitamin D, it can raise your calcium levels, and that might affect, might make you more sensitive to harmful side effects. So, like I said, a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D. If you start taking one of these basic multivitamins, like for example, the one that I take, the dietary reference intake for vitamin D is 800 to 1,000 IUs for older adults. This multivitamin has 1,000 IUs in it. So if I was taking this multivitamin and then I decided to also take another vitamin D supplement on its own, that could be 2,000 IUs that I'm taking. The upper limit for vitamin D is 4,000 IUs a day. But just be aware, if you're taking vitamin D supplements and you taking digoxin, just talk to your doctor about that, because vitamin D is needed for calcium absorption. And like I said, you might be absorbing too much calcium. So just a point I wanted to make. And then vitamin C and K, Coumadin, I always get this question. And what I'm going to tell you is something that you'll want to talk to your doctor about, because many of your doctors and maybe even dietitians in the past. I'm an older dietitian. I've been dietitian for 37 years. But back in the day, we used to say, do not eat foods high in vitamin K. The correct advice actually is to maintain a consistent intake in your diet of vitamin K. So if you're going to eat spinach, then eat spinach consistently in the week. Don't be making changes to it. Or if you're going to eat broccoli or those green vegetables that are high in vitamin K, you just maintain that consistent intake. If you want to add some vitamin K foods, then you'd have to talk to your doctor about it, because they would have to check your prothrombin your time to make sure your blood and your Coumadin levels are right. So it's a consistent intake. The foods or the juices specifically you shouldn't take with Coumadin are grapefruit juice, cranberry juice, and pomegranate juice. Those actually can interfere with Coumadin and cause harmful side effects. The reason if you take vitamin C and K with Coumadin is, like I was talking about, those vitamin K clots the blood, Coumadin thins the blood. So that's why we always say be careful taking them together. But I just wanted to stress that point. It's a consistent intake, because vitamin K is important for our bodies. But remember those juices, don't drink grapefruit, pomegranate, or cranberry juice with it. Okay, B12. If you take anything for like heartburn, a lot of heartburn medications, if you take with B12, it might make it harder for the body to absorb B12. And already it's harder for our body to absorb B12 as we get older. So this is something you really want to let your doctors know. If you're taking any over-the-counter antacids. And also if you're on metformin, you know, for type 2 diabetes, it can make it harder for our body to absorb B12. So make sure that they're checking your B12 level and monitoring it so you don't get anemia, either macrocytic or pernicious. And if you do get that, they might need to give you a supplement or a shot. And then vitamin A, if you take that with like some cholesterol lowering drugs, it could make it harder to absorb vitamin A, but taking extremely high doses of vitamin might thin your blood and increase your risk of bleeding. So most of us aren't taking multivitamin, or a vitamin A on its own. And usually when I'm telling you about these cautions over here, are if you're taking a supplement. It usually doesn't happen if you're just eating foods high in these vitamins, which I'm going to talk about shortly. And then calcium, if you're taking calcium, there's a few medicines that it interacts with. So number one, Cipro, if you take it together, it might make the medication less effective and make it harder for you to absorb calcium. If you take digoxin, and like I said, take D3 at this, I already talked about this one, vitamin D at the same time. If you take like a diuretic, it can also raise your vitamin D level. Your calcium level. If you're a chronic laxative abuser, and I know there's some of you out there, either because you don't get enough activity or maybe you have disordered eating, if that's a thing for you, that can reduce your calcium absorption and affect your bones. If you're on Dilantin, if you take it with calcium, it can decrease both the drug's effectiveness and your calcium levels. And if you're on Verapamil, taking calcium and vitamin D together with calcium may counter the antiarrhythmic effects. So you might be on it for your heart to beat regularly. And if you take calcium and vitamin D with it, it could be affecting that. So again, talk to your doctor. Don't self-medicate. Don't make changes on what I'm telling you today. This is just informational for you to talk to your doctors. All right. Iron, it's always best to take iron with and calcium supplements at different times, ideally 1 to 2 hours apart. So if you're on iron and you're taking calcium for your bones, just make sure you separate that by 2 hours. Otherwise, it can interfere with the absorption of both of them. And then magnesium, if you drink a lot of alcohol, it can reduce your absorption of magnesium, and magnesium is also needed for your bone health. And then potassium, if you're on some diuretics that waste potassium, you already probably know, and your doctor should be monitoring your potassium level. But then again, also alcohol can reduce the absorption of potassium. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about that. And like I said, if you visit the NIH website, there'll be more information there. But as we age, we need more nutrients, but we need less calories. So we need more of calcium, vitamin D, zinc, iron, vitamin B12, because we don't absorb them as well as we used to. So here's a quick poll question. How many servings of fruits and vegetables do you typically eat each day? Okay, and let me go to the next slide. If I can. Oops. Okay, so we're going to take a look at all the different vitamins and minerals. Yeah, 2 to 3 servings, some of you 4 to 5 servings, so you're doing pretty good. You should feel good about the amount of fruits and vegetables you're eating. That's wonderful, because the fruits and vegetables are the biggest powerhouses for our vitamins and minerals, but so are meats. And so if any of you are vegetarian or vegans, it's also going to be important that we focus on some of the non-meat sources of the vitamins, and I'm going to get into all those right now, as soon as I can get my slide to move. Come on, little guy. Okay, so here we're going to start with vitamin A. Of course, y'all know that vitamin A is helps support your eye health and your vision and your immune system and your skin health. And some food sources are beef liver, which I know there's a love-hate relationship with liver. Some love, some hate. It's also in fish and dark leafy green and yellow vegetables. It's in milk. It's in carrots, sweet potatoes, broccoli, spinach, squash, apricots, cantaloupe, and mangoes, and also in fortified grains. So usually if you eat breakfast cereal that's fortified, it's got a lot of stuff in it. And there's two types of vitamin A. One comes from animal products and the other one comes from plant products. The one from plant products alone, you need to eat more of. So if you are a vegetarian or don't eat a lot of meat, then you need to eat more of these fruits and vegetables, the dark green or the orange or the yellow. Look at vitamin A a little bit more. The recommended intake is around 900 to 700 micrograms a day for males and females respectively. The upper limit's 3,000 micrograms a day. Deficiency is rare in the US for those reasons I said, because it's usually in the fortified grains that are in our bread or our cereals. But if you do have night blindness, dry eyes, or have a poor immune function, that could be a sign of maybe some low vitamin A intake. Right. The next one we're going to take a look at is B6. It's an essential protein for metabolism and amino acid synthesis. That means just so that when we eat protein, we can break it down and use it. It plays a role in our brain function, our mood regulation, our immune system health, and our blood cell formation. And it also can help regulate our blood sugar levels and support nerve functions. So if you have diabetes, or if you get like hangry, like at 10 or 11 or in the afternoon, maybe make sure that you're eating some protein foods with your snacks. It's found mainly in meats or poultry or fish, but it's also in beans. And when I say beans, not green beans, beans like kidney beans, black beans, and lentils, those kind of beans. It's also in potatoes and bananas and nuts and whole grains. And as I said, if you eat cereal, it's probably fortified with this B vitamin. The recommended intake is about 1.7 to 1.5 micrograms. The upper limit is 100, milligrams a day. If you have deficiency in B6, you could be irritable, depressed, you could have nerve damage, numbness, or tingling. Some people complain of numbness and tingling, and that could be a B vitamin because, like I said, it's used in our nervous system. Or if you have a lot of itchy skin rash, may be a B vitamin thing. People at the highest risk, if you have kidney disease or if your kidneys aren't working properly or if you're on dialysis, if you have autoimmune disorders like myself, I have ulcerative colitis, or if you have rheumatoid arthritis, celiac disease, or Crohn's, or inflammatory bowel disease, or if you have alcohol dependency, you could be at risk for B6 deficiency. B12 is the one that many of us are at risk for being deficient in, because just as we get older, our bodies aren't able to glean the B12 off of the meat and the protein. It mainly is in animal foods, B12. So if you're vegan or vegetarian, you could be at higher risk for deficiency as well. But like I said, it's just harder for our body to make the active form of B12. So some of us might need a supplement that's already broken down to the more active form. And some of you might have the form of anemia where you actually have to have the shots, where you do like 6 weeks of shots and then like a monthly shot to maintain your levels. B12 is important. Let me just look down here. Because it does play a role in helping regulate your homocysteine level in your blood. If you have elevated homocysteine levels, that often indicates that you're deficient in B12 or folate. And if you have high homocysteine levels, it puts you at higher risk for cardiovascular disease or stroke or possibly blood clots. So it's important to get enough vitamin B12 because it helps bring that homocysteine level down. I wanted to just mention nutritional yeast, fortified nutritional yeast, especially if you don't eat a lot of meat. I'm not a big meat person. I like nutritional yeast. I'd like to put it in my popcorn. I usually just spray it with like a little Pam or something first so it sticks. But it also imparts a cheesy flavor. So there's some good recipes where you can make like a mac and cheese and use the yeast instead of cheese. So that's just an FYI. It's estimated that 10 to 30% of adults over 50 don't absorb enough B12. And so experts advise most of the requirements be met through fortified foods or through a supplement because the crystalline form is better absorbed. So again, if you take one of these basic multivitamins and you read the label, you'll see it has a higher dose of B12. And that should be good unless for some reason you're not absorbing the B12. If you want to have your ask your doctor to check your blood test to see where you're at with B12, they recommend the methylmalonic acid test. They said that's more accurate because it assesses the active form of B12 in your body. Deficiencies, if there's signs of deficiencies, if you have fatigue or anemia, specifically megablastic or pernicious, again, back to that numbness and tingling in your hands or feet, neurological issues like dementia, depression, and loss of bone density. So if you do like a bone scan and they say you're low, it could be you're not absorbing your B12, or if you've had a fall or a fracture, they might want to check your B12 level. And again, if you have any of those digestive disorders I talked about with your gut, or you're vegan or vegetarian, it's a good idea to take a supplement and talk to your doctor about checking the level. If you ever see or have this happening with your tongue, I'm not sticking my tongue out at you. I'm just trying to show a picture. This is called glossitis. It's swollen, red, smooth, sore tongue. And if you get that, it could mean you're deficient in B12, riboflavin, folate, niacin, B6, biotin, or iron. So all of those are mainly B vitamins. It could be also iron deficiency. And it's common with celiac disease, infections, so Sjogren's syndrome, or low estrogen levels, or even if you wear dentures. All right, so if you have any of that, you might need more vitamin C to help that heal. Vitamin C is an antioxidant that protects your cells from damage. It makes collagen, and it's a powerful collagen is a powerful protein that helps your wounds heal. It helps your body absorb iron. So if you're taking a iron supplement, you might want to take it with orange juice to help it be better absorbed. And it does support your immune system to help protect you from diseases. So that's right. When we're sick, or even before we get sick, like you're going to travel, have some vitamin C and maybe a little extra doses before you travel. The food sources, of course, are the citrus fruits and vegetables, but also kiwi is a really good source, and bell peppers and strawberries and tomatoes. Even some potatoes have vitamin C, and broccoli. So it's mainly in fruits and vegetables. So just eat a lot of fruits and veggies. You might be getting vitamin C. If you eat the skin of a kiwi, you'll get some extra fiber too. And just close your eyes and eat it like a peach. For vitamin C, the recommended intake is 90 milligrams a day and 75 for females. Smokers, if you do smoke, you probably need more than that because you tend to have a lower vitamin C level as a result of the increased free radical damage associated with smoking. So take note of that. If you take more than 2,000 milligrams a day, though, of vitamin C, more is not better with any of these things, by the way, and higher doses could cause some GI issues and diarrhea. And again, you'll just be flushing it down the toilet. If you are deficient, you might have bleeding gums, or if you're really deficient, your teeth might be loose, or if you have slow wound healing. Now, scurvy is rare in the US, however, it still can occur. And I just wanted, the reason I showed this ship is because back in the day, a British doctor found that the daily ration of lime juice would prevent the horrible softening and bleeding of organs, tendons, skins, and gums that led to death of sailors. So that was scurvy. And so sailors got the nickname limey from that practice because they'd have that lime juice every day. Today, we know that sailors on long voyages, they usually take vitamin C supplements to help ensure they don't get scurvy. So just an interesting tidbit. Okay, vitamin D. Vitamin D is a big one. So as you get older, your body needs more vitamin D to keep your bones and muscles healthy. If your doctor, oh, I think we're going to launch a poll question. Has your doctor ever checked your vitamin D level? And I just had my doctor check mine. I think, oh, I know, just recently because I was having some issues and it was good. But I do take a multivitamin. And in addition to that, I take another 1,000 IUs of vitamin D a day. But like I said, I have ulcerative colitis. So I have some issues with absorbing some of those things. So if you do have, okay, so they have checked. I'm so glad to see this number that about 60% of your doctors have checked your vitamin D level. That's outstanding. I give them a gold star because we don't know how much supplement to take or if we need a supplement until we know if our body is deficient and where our levels are at. It would just be like throwing a penny in the fountain. So to know where your levels are at, ask your doctor if they could please check your vitamin D level. And this is a blood test they should ask for, 25 hydroxy vitamin D status. That's a good one to know what the active vitamin D is. But you may need the test, especially if you have osteomalacia or osteoporosis, you have a low bone density or have bone pain, you have muscle weakness or aches or fractures, you don't go out in the sun very much, or when you do go in the sun, you always wear sunscreen, you don't eat enough in general, or if you had bariatric surgery for weight loss, or if you have Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, celiac, or liver or kidney disease, or take cholesterol-lowering medications. Those are all reasons why they should be checking your vitamin D level to see if you need to take a supplement. All right, so vitamin D is called the sunshine vitamin, and you get it from these foods, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So it's the sunshine vitamin. So the recommended intake right now is 800 to 1,000 IUs. Lots of people say that's very conservative, that many older adults need higher than that. But again, get the test done first and then follow your doctor's advice on how much you should be taking daily. Excess vitamin D, like I said, can cause that hypercalcemia, which is calcium buildup. And if you take too much, you could get nausea, weakness, confusion, or cause kidney problems. So the upper limit per day is 4,000 IUs. Now, for us to synthesize vitamin D on our skin and then hopefully convert it to the active form in our liver and kidneys if we don't have problems, we need to be out in the sun for 10 to 15 minutes without sunscreen. And that's only probably from April to September when the angle of the sun is adequate in this part of the country. Otherwise, if you never go out without sunscreen, then you might be at risk for vitamin D deficiency. So you might want to have your level checked. The darker the skin that you have, the harder it is for it to make the vitamin D. And the older our skin gets, the harder it is for our skin to make vitamin D. So all those things contribute to the reason why so many people are at risk for being deficient in vitamin D. All right, so calcium. Another little one that is so important to us. I know some of you take calcium supplements, and that's just fine. If you take your calcium supplements and medicines, I would take them 2 hours apart because there's a potential for a lot of medicines to interact with calcium. So if you're taking your calcium supplement, maybe take it 2 hours before you take your other, or after you take your other medicines. I'll talk a little bit about calcium carbonate and calcium citrate. Those are the two most common supplements. Calcium carbonate you should take with food. That's probably the most common one that people take, calcium carbonate. Calcium citrate, it doesn't matter if you take it with or without food, but if you have any issues with your GI, you can take it with food. But for both of them, you shouldn't take more than 500 milligrams at a time of calcium, because that's the max that your body's going to absorb at a time. So if you take 2,000 milligrams all at once in the morning, you're only probably utilizing about 500 milligrams of that. So it's better to split the dose into 2 or 3 doses and do 500 milligrams, in the morning and 500 at night if you're going to take a supplement. Let's see. Of course, it's needed to strengthen our bones and teeth, and it also supports our muscles and our nerve function. The plant sources, it's of course in our milk and our dairy, and it's also in a lot of fortified plant milks now too, and also in fortified orange juice. But you can also find it in spinach and kale and broccoli. But the thing with that version of calcium is you have to eat a lot of it. So about 4 to 5 cups of kale or spinach, which could be okay if you want to eat a big salad. And that would equal about what an 8-ounce cup of milk or yogurt would have in it. Okay. Oh, and calcium supplements, when taken with food, the calcium can bind food oxalates. And some of the foods are high in oxalates, and oxalates are something that can form kidney stones. It's not necessarily the calcium on its own. So if you take a calcium supplement with food and it binds those oxalates, it can actually decrease the risk of getting kidney stones. And I think there's only a small risk of people getting kidney stones from calcium supplements. I think it was about 2% a day. 2% of people get kidney stones that are calcium based if you take a supplement. If you're lactose intolerant, as the little girl here is showing, it's better, and some of us are as we get older. Even like I don't tolerate lactose that well, but I can eat aged cheese and yogurt. I can tolerate those okay. But a caution to look at the sodium content of cheese, yogurt, or cottage cheese, especially if they have added sugars, or cottage cheese tends to be high in salt anyway. A lot of dietary salt intake can increase your urinary calcium losses. So if you eat a lot of salt, just know you might be losing calcium because of that. So just be aware, maybe another incentive to cut back on the salt. Yeah, and again, those fortified foods can have as much calcium as milk. Right? So, one study reported that if all adults with osteoporosis in the US took calcium and vitamin D supplements, we'd save about $4 billion a year by reducing fractures by 14%. So that seems like a pretty simple way to save your own bones and save a lot of money. The upper limit for calcium, like I said, is 2,000 milligrams a day. If you have a chronically low intake where you're just not eating any calcium that you know of, or not chewing up your Tums or one of those calcium supplements, then you could have a low bone mass and increase your risk for osteoporosis and falls and fractures. If you take diuretics for your high blood pressure, if you have renal failure, if you've had bariatric surgery, all of those things can reduce your calcium absorption. So again, if you haven't had your bone density tested, even if you're a male, I would encourage your doctors to check that, because gentlemen can get osteoporosis as well. And just for example, if you've had bariatric surgery, or the absorption of calcium goes from 33% before you had surgery down to 7% after you had surgery. So I know more people are getting that, so just wanted to mention it. And iron, of course, is important for our red blood cell production and our oxygen transport. Iron supplements can reduce the absorption of levodopa, which is a medicine for Parkinson's disease and restless leg syndrome, and levothyroxine, which is used to treat goiters or hypothyroidism. So you should take the iron and the medicine 4 hours apart if you are on an iron supplement. Now, I'm not telling anyone to take iron supplements unless you've been prescribed by your doctor, because they will cause some severe constipation. But I will encourage you to look at the food sources of heme and non-heme iron. So heme iron is well absorbed, and it comes from meat, fish, poultry, liver, and red meats, or even cooking in iron cookware can help with the iron being transferred to the food that you're cooking in there. Non-heme iron is less well absorbed, and it depends on what your iron status in your body is, how well you're going to absorb it. And that comes from things like legumes, which are beans. Like I said, the kidney beans, any kind of beans in that line, the variety beans, dark leafy greens, iron fortified bread, flour, or breakfast cereals. And like I said, vitamin C can enhance the absorption. So if you eat meat or any of these sources of the heme iron, or even your non-heme iron, and have vitamin C with it, either iron orange juice or bell peppers or a stir fry with broccoli, that would be a good way to help absorb your iron. Vegetarians and vegans, non-heme iron is less available. So even though the recommended intake is about 8 milligrams a day for iron, it goes up by 1.8 times if you're a vegetarian or vegans, because it comes from those non-heme sources. So you need about 14 milligrams a day, and the upper limit's 45 milligrams a day. You might be at risk if you have a poor diet, malabsorption disorders, or have blood loss, of course. Most of us, after we, are done with our period and those things, tend not to have blood loss. But if you have something where you lost blood, they will be checking that. Signs of deficiency are weakness, fatigue, difficulty in concentration, impaired cognitive and function, impaired immunity, limited work and exercise capacity, because remember that carries the oxygen through our body, and inability to regulate your body temperature. So if you're cold all the time, maybe just ask your doc to check your iron status. If you have spoon nails, so if you can tell from this picture, it looks like someone pushed down with a spoon on your nail and there's an indent. This is definitely a sign of chronic iron deficiency anemia. Could be due to malnutrition, celiac, or blood loss. Usually it will go away once you treat the underlying cause. And there's a little YouTube video, or if you want to search on YouTube just for the spoon nails, you can learn more about that. And also, if you have that patchy hair loss, yes, of course, it happens when we get older. It can be a sign of not getting enough to eat in general and not enough protein, but it could be the sign of zinc, biotin, or iron deficiency. And you have increased risk for developing this if you have asthma, thyroid disease, rheumatoid arthritis, irritable bowel disease, lupus, or it could just be hereditary. So again, if you have those symptoms, maybe have them check your B status and your iron status. Potassium, think about what potassium foods are in your head, or you can type them in there. What are potassium foods before you look at the cheat sheet below? When you think of potassium foods, you usually think of, I'm going to guess, bananas. But take a look at, in the next slide, I'll show you how that all breaks down. Dried apricots, prunes, raisins, any dried fruits are high in potassium. Orange juice is high. Acorn, squash, potatoes, spinach, sweet potatoes, broccoli. Again, those beans and lentils, soybeans, nuts. Those are all great sources of potassium. And your body needs potassium for almost everything it does. And it's essential mineral and an electrolyte. It regulates your fluid balance. It helps with your muscle contractions and your heart and kidney function. If you're getting a lot of cramps, it could be you're not getting enough potassium, or you're wasting a lot of potassium. If you eat a lot of high salt, if you eat a lot of processed food or salt, you want to make sure you're eating enough potassium foods, because it blunts the effects of those high sodium intake. They work in balance. But about 90% of our potassium is excreted daily. So we have to make sure we're eating foods rich in potassium every day. So here's some other foods. Like I was saying, potatoes with the skin have more than double the amount of a banana. So baked potato, just wrap it in paper towel, put it in the microwave 8 minutes, beautiful source of potassium. Lentils, prune juice, kidney beans, yogurt, tomato juice, milk. Those are some potassium contents of foods. Also, if you look up on the USDA website, you can get a list of potassium containing foods. The recommended intake is 3,400 milligrams a day for men, 2,600 milligrams for women. Most of us come nowhere near that. So really focus on how much potassium you're eating every day. If you get too little, it can increase your blood pressure actually, because remember that sodium, salt, potassium, salt balance. So if you don't have enough potassium, you're going to have more salt and your blood pressure is going up, and can deplete calcium in your bones, can actually pull it out if you don't have enough potassium. And you're at increased risk of kidney stones if you don't eat enough potassium. Some of the signs are muscle cramps and irregular heartbeat. So if you feel like your heart's like jumping or beating fast, let your doctor know, of course. But it could be it could be potassium. It also could be magnesium. If you have a sickness where you have a lot of diarrhea and vomiting, or you're a laxative abuser, or you take diuretics, or you're on dialysis, again, that can be you at higher risk for wasting potassium. So be aware of that. And the last one we're going to talk about is magnesium. Magnesium, a lot of us forget about, but it's really important for our muscle and nerve function, and also for our bone health. For our energy and muscle contraction. So again, if you're having irregular heartbeat or AFib, make sure that your doctor's checking the low-hanging fruit first, like your potassium, your magnesium, your vitamin D, your phosphorus level, because all of those things can cause your heart to have AFib, where it's going, beating regularly. So check those first, and then hopefully we can just supplement and get those back in line. Of course, I put a plug here for Fall Tree, which comes. Oops, sorry. But food sources of magnesium are pumpkin seeds. Like I like pepitas. Pepitas I just put in my soup. Chia seeds I stir in anything. You can sprinkle them on your salad. You can put them in your yogurt. You can put them in applesauce. They're so lovely. I made that orange Jello salad that my mother-in-law used to make. I made it with light Cool Whip and mandarin oranges and low-fat cottage cheese. And then I sprinkled flaxseed on it and chia seeds right when I was going to eat it. And it just elevated it to the next level. It was delicious. And then I was getting my magnesium. So I eat my pepitas and chia seeds every day. And I eat almonds every day. And leafy greens also. I actually tear up leafy greens and put in my tomato basil soup. I put tomato basil soup, leafy greens, any kind of bean like kidney bean or black bean. I microwave that for 4 minutes and I take it out and I put a couple walnuts on top and then my pepitas. And it's a really nutrient dense lunch that's high in protein and packed with nutrients. So that's a simple lunch idea for y'all. But magnesium, let me see here. What else I want to say? At higher risk, older adults are at higher risk for being deficient in magnesium because we take multiple medications that can affect its absorption, or we just in general have a low dietary intake. Remember, back those foods. Are you eating pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, nuts, whole grains, leafy greens, beans, and avocados? If you're not, you might be at risk for magnesium deficiency. Now, I'm not telling you to take a magnesium supplement without talking to your doctor, because the upper limit for supplements is 350 milligrams a day. And some supplements will say they have 250 milligrams in them. So you could easily get too much magnesium, and that also can affect your heart and your nerves in a negative way. There's not an upper limit for magnesium from foods. So if you eat a lot of magnesium from foods, your body can regulate that and excrete it if it doesn't need it. The caution is for supplements. So again, don't self-medicate. I'm just raising your awareness today, okay? If you have intestinal absorption issues related to a decrease in your vitamin D metabolism, because vitamin D stimulates the absorption of magnesium, or again, chronic alcoholism can promote increased excretion of magnesium. So again, if you have any of these signs of deficiency, let your doctor know. and they can check that level. Just to reiterate, don't self-medicate. Please communicate with your doctor, especially if you're thinking about making any changes to your diet, the foods that you include in your diet, or if you're concerned and you want to level check to see if you should be supplementing and how much supplement you should be taking, talk with your doctor. And then just a plug for those resources, just a reminder, it's the National Institute of Health, Office of Dietary Supplements, and USDA food data. And I got all of this information from two excellent resources that are referenced at the top that were just updated this year and last year. So I tried to get the most up-to-date information to share with you today. And here we are at the end, and I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to thank WIHA again for the honor of presenting today. Thank you all for listening to the presentation. I hope you had at least one takeaway, and I'm going to hand it over to Miss Erin.
Great, wonderful. Thank you so much, Pam. That was a great presentation. We will get to some questions and answers. I know there's a few in the chat. If you have a question, please enter that into the chat as well. Before we get to that, I just wanted to let everyone know that we are asking for feedback on today's presentation. When you exit Zoom, that will automatically come up. So we just ask that you take a moment to do that. And then I think before we get to the question and answers, I'm just going to briefly review our upcoming Age Well series. So we have an event on April 8th on habits of healthy aging with partners at the Super Aging Research Initiative at UW-Madison. We have another Brain Health, What is Dementia presentation coming up on April 24th. And then we also have Mind Matters, Navigating Mental Health in Older Adulthood on May 20th. So those will also be sent out with the presentation notes from today. But now we'll just take a couple minutes to go through some Q&A. So I'll pull those up. Pam, I think the first question we had is, does nutritional yeast have gluten?
No, I actually follow a gluten-free diet myself, and I love nutritional yeast. So it's a great question, but no, it does not have gluten.
Great. And somebody else asked, if one doesn't eat fortified breads and cereals due to gluten sensitivities, do you have suggestions for that?
Want to take a basic multivitamin just to ensure adequacy. That's the reason that I take a basic multivitamin for women 50 plus, because it's just the fortified has like a lot of the B vitamins and a lot of things that we're not getting from those whole grains because we're avoiding the wheat and the whole grains. So some of the breads that are gluten-free might have some fortification in it, but I would just take that basic multivitamin just in case. That's what I do. And like I said, it probably won't harm you, but it helps ensure adequacy. If you don't need it, you're probably going to excrete it. Great questions.
Great. And somebody else, there's a couple questions on protein. I know you didn't talk about that today. So somebody just was wondering why you didn't mention protein. And then somebody else was a specific question about how much protein older adults may need.
Reason I didn't mention excellent questions. Protein's hugely important for older adults. If you watch the presentation I did back in October, the recordings on the WIHA Age Well website, I definitely talked a lot about protein there. I talked about carbohydrates and fats and a lot of tips to incorporate foods into your diet. So I encourage you to watch that. But protein, we need it throughout the day. So usually need about 20 to 30 grams 3 times a day to absorb it efficiently in our bodies as we get older. So like for example, this morning I had a protein bar because I was in a hurry and that had 10 grams of protein in it. So then I drank 8 ounces of milk with it. So then I had 18 grams of protein there. So I was close to my 20. But otherwise, if you eat some Greek yogurt in the morning and put in some chia seeds have some protein in them, stir that in, that will get you the 20 grams. So just remember 20 to 30 grams about 3 times a day. I have some nice handouts, and on our Nourish Step, if you look up Nourish Step, if you just type in Nourish Step, it should come up for the GWAR website. Or like I said, look at that October presentation. But you need older adults 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. I get into all of that in that presentation in October, or email me and I'll happily follow up with you.
I'm entering a link in the chat now. If you have any additional questions for Pam, please feel free to submit those questions at the link in the chat. Otherwise, we do have another minute or two left if anyone has any additional questions.
Oh, someone asked my recipe for lunch. So actually, I hate to plug brands, but I use the Progressa tomato basil soup. I use half of a can. I tear up a cup of spinach, fresh spinach. I put in the bowl. I put half a cup of beans. I usually use kidney beans or black beans, but you can use whatever kind of bean you like. I wash them to get the extra salt off. And then sometimes I put a little feta in too. And then I microwave that for 4 minutes. And then when it's done, I sprinkle on top some pepitas and a couple walnuts because the walnuts are such a great source of omega-3 fatty acids. So you should have a handful of those every day. And then the pepitas have that magnesium in them. And so that's what I have. I love it. It's so enjoyable. And I hope if you try it, you enjoy it as well.
Wonderful. I'll be
Yes.
sure to make note of that in the email coming out with the recording.
That's wonderful. I have so much stuff to share. So if you have questions, I know this is a big topic, and even about things like someone asked about the protein that we didn't cover today, I'm happy to answer questions. So just email me. Oh, I'll put my email in the chat. And thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Pam. We really enjoyed having you again today, and thank you for your wealth of knowledge on nutrition.
You,
And
my
thanks
pleasure.
everyone else for joining us for this series of our Age Well series, and we hope to see you again next month.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everyone.
All right, bye.